The stars in the sky twinkled, as they always did, in their vast, silent beauty. But for the people of Earth, a new presence was about to disrupt that calm. It was the arrival of the Galactic Empire, a vast and powerful civilization that had conquered countless worlds across the galaxy. Their ships, enormous and shining with advanced technology, entered the Earth system without warning. On Earth, life went on as usual. People went to work, children went to school, and the world moved forward. But suddenly, everything changed. The skies above Earth were filled with massive ships, their shapes unlike anything humans had ever seen. They hovered over cities, their presence unmistakable and intimidating. The government of Earth, led by President Elena Carter, had been preparing for years, but they had never expected something like this. News outlets began broadcasting the images of the alien ships, and panic spread quickly. The calm and peaceful world was now on the brink of an invasion. The Galactic Empire was known throughout the galaxy for one thing. They took what they wanted, no matter who stood in their way. They would land on a planet, claim it as their own, and demand its resources. Governments fell, and civilizations crumbled before their mighty ships. Their military strength was unmatched. Earth, however, had never had to face something like this before. President Carter stood at the center of the crisis. The weight of the situation rested on her shoulders. She knew that the survival of Earth and the future of humanity depended on how she handled the situation. Earth was not a powerful world by galactic standards. They had limited technology, no massive space fleets, and no military strength like the Empire. But what Earth had was something the Empire could never understand: determination. In the moments following the first sighting of the fleet, Carter called an emergency meeting with her advisors. Scientists, military leaders, and diplomats gathered in the underground command center of the government. The air was thick with tension, and every person present understood the gravity of the situation. "We cannot allow them to take what is ours," President Carter said, her voice steady but filled with the seriousness of the moment. "Earth belongs to us, and we will defend it." The room fell silent. The Empire's fleet was huge, far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. The technology on their ships made Earth's best inventions look like toys. It was easy to believe that the Empire would crush humanity without a second thought. Yet President Carter refused to entertain such thoughts. She had grown up hearing stories of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. She believed in those stories. She believed in Earth. "We need to send them a message," she said, her gaze strong. "Let them know that Earth will not submit. No passage will be granted." The diplomats and military leaders exchanged worried glances. Was it wise to challenge the Empire so directly? The fear of an invasion was real, and Earth's defenses were not designed to fight off such an advanced enemy. But President Carter's resolve was unshakable. She turned to her top military advisor, General Mason. "Prepare a message," Carter ordered. "We will not bend. We will not break." General Mason nodded. "Yes, Madam President. I'll make sure it's delivered." As the message was prepared, Earth's citizens could only watch and wait. News stations began broadcasting the ominous presence of the Empire, and people around the world stared at the skies in disbelief. Could it be true? Were they really going to fight an entire galactic empire? In the coming hours, the message was sent. It was simple and clear. Earth forbids the Galactic Empire's passage. No surrender. No invasion. The words echoed across the stars, a declaration of defiance that surprised even the Empire's commanders. On the other side of the galaxy, the leader of the Galactic Empire, Emperor Zorith, watched the transmission with disbelief. He had never encountered a species that dared defy the Empire. Most civilizations trembled at the mere thought of facing the Empire's might. But Earth's message was different. It was bold. It was human. "Are they serious?" Emperor Zorith asked, his voice a cold growl as he looked at the screen. His advisors stood silent, unsure of how to respond. Earth had no real military power. It made no sense that they would refuse the Empire's demands. "They are serious, Your Excellency," one advisor finally said, her voice trembling. "They are not like the others." Emperor Zorith clenched his fist, his face darkening. He had expected submission, not defiance. But the more he thought about it, the more intrigued he became. Perhaps this humanity, as they called themselves, had something unexpected about them. Perhaps they would be a worthy challenge after all. Back on Earth, President Carter stood on a balcony, staring out at the massive ships still hovering in the sky. The world held its breath. What would happen next? Would humanity back down, or would they rise up against the Empire with all the strength they could muster? She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: Earth would not go down without a fight. In the wake of Earth's defiant message, the days that followed were filled with a strange tension. Across the globe, governments, scientists, and military leaders began to prepare for the worst. Humanity had sent a bold message to the Galactic Empire, but now they had to face the consequences. The enormous fleet of the Empire hovered over Earth's atmosphere, waiting for their next move. It was a frightening reality. Earth was on the verge of being overrun by a force far beyond anything the human race had ever encountered. President Elena Carter stood before a large map in the war room, her face etched with concern. She had just received the latest reports. The Empire's fleet was massive and well-equipped. The best Earth's military had to offer was no match for their technology. But President Carter refused to accept defeat. She knew that humanity had something that the Empire did not understand: the will to survive. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to strike," Carter said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "We need to find a way to defend ourselves. Is there anything in our history, anything in our past that might help?" General Mason, her top military advisor, stood beside her. "We've searched everything we could, Madam President. We have no advanced weapons that could take on their fleet. They're too powerful." Carter didn't respond immediately. She knew that the Empire's technology was far beyond Earth's, but there had to be something hidden, something humanity had overlooked. As her mind raced, she remembered something from her childhood, a story her grandfather had told her. It was an old family legend, one that had always seemed like a fairy tale. But what if there was truth to it? "General, gather the top archaeologists, historians, and scientists," she said suddenly, her eyes narrowing with a spark of hope. "I think I know where we can find an answer." The team worked through the night, digging through Earth's ancient archives and scanning old maps. And then something remarkable happened. They discovered an old legend from ancient Earth, long forgotten by modern civilization. It spoke of a mysterious artifact, an object from the distant past that held the power to challenge even the most advanced technologies. The artifact had been hidden away for thousands of years, buried beneath the ruins of an ancient civilization that had vanished long before the rise of modern societies. The artifact was said to be capable of disrupting technology on a massive scale, a weapon unlike anything Earth had ever seen. But where was it? No one knew. The search for the artifact began in earnest. Earth's finest minds were called upon to examine every historical record, every ancient ruin, every corner of the world that might hold a clue. Time was running out, and the Empire was not waiting. Their ships were already beginning to descend, their presence more menacing with each passing hour. Days passed, and the pressure mounted. President Carter felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The clock was ticking, and Earth was on the brink of war. But she refused to let fear take hold. There had to be hope. There had to be something humanity could use to turn the tide. Then, in a remote desert region, an excavation team uncovered something extraordinary: an ancient underground chamber, untouched by time. Inside, the team found relics, inscriptions, and strange symbols unlike anything seen before. It was clear that the civilization that had created these items was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever known. At the heart of the chamber, resting on a pedestal, was a small metallic object, an orb covered in intricate markings. It was the artifact. The moment the orb was touched, a surge of energy shot through the chamber. The archaeologists and scientists working on the site were stunned. The artifact was active, its power undeniable. It was clear that this object held some kind of advanced technology, something that could change everything. President Carter was immediately informed of the discovery. She flew to the site with General Mason and a team of experts to examine the artifact firsthand. As they arrived, the orb was carefully examined under a protective shield. The strange symbols that covered its surface were being translated by Earth's top linguists, but the true nature of the artifact remained a mystery. "What is it?" Carter asked, her voice filled with awe and curiosity. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen," said Dr. Lena Harris, a leading archaeologist. "The materials used to make this ore are not from Earth. It appears to be a highly advanced form of energy storage. We believe it can interfere with electronic systems on a large scale." Carter's heart raced. This was it. This was the key to humanity's survival. If the artifact could disrupt the Empire's technology, they might stand a chance after all. But there was still much to understand about how it worked. Could they figure it out in time? Dr. Harris nodded as she examined the device. "It will take time, Madam President. We need to study it carefully to understand how to use it." As they worked, President Carter couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. The artifact was humanity's last hope, and it was tied to Earth's ancient past. She believed in the power of the past, the strength of those who had come before them. They had fought, survived, and thrived. And now, Earth's ancestors were offering a chance to do the same. The artifact might hold the key to defeating the Galactic Empire, but only if they could unlock its full potential. The race against time had begun. The days grew darker, and the sky above Earth seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. The Galactic Empire's fleet remained in orbit, casting long shadows over the planet. Earth's leaders, scientists, and military officials had worked tirelessly to unlock the secret of the mysterious artifact. But time was running out. The Empire was not patient, and their message had been clear: surrender or face destruction. President Elena Carter stood on the balcony of her office, gazing up at the massive ships floating above Earth. The Empire's presence was overwhelming. There were dozens of warships, each one capable of obliterating entire cities with a single shot. Yet, despite their overwhelming strength, Earth had not backed down. They had sent their defiant message, and now they would have to live with the consequences. The Empire was known for its ruthless conquests. They had crushed countless civilizations across the galaxy, forcing planets into submission through sheer force. Earth had never been prepared for something like this. They had never faced a threat of such scale, and yet the people of Earth were standing tall, refusing to be intimidated. In the war room, President Carter met with her most trusted advisors, including General Mason, the head of the military. The atmosphere was tense, and every word felt heavy. Earth's future depended on what they decided now. "Madam President, the Empire is preparing for an invasion," General Mason said, his voice serious. "They've begun deploying smaller ships, and their troops are making their way toward key cities. It's only a matter of time before they launch a full-scale assault." Carter's jaw tightened. She had known this was coming, but hearing it aloud made it feel all the more real. "How much time do we have?" "Less than 48 hours, General Mason replied. "We're running out of options. Our military is not equipped to handle their forces. We've tried to build defenses, but nothing we have can stand up to their firepower." The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled over them. Earth's defenses were weak, and the Empire's fleet was too powerful. Yet Carter refused to let fear control her. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived. This time would be no different. "We may not have the strength to defeat them head-on, but we have something they don't," Carter said, her voice steady and full of conviction. "We have the will to fight. We have the heart to protect our home." Her words resonated with the room. It was true. Earth's greatest strength had always been its people. The determination and spirit that flowed through humanity had allowed them to survive wars, pandemics, and natural disasters. Now, it would have to carry them through this challenge. We still don't know everything about the artifact. Dr. Lena Harris, the leading archaeologist working on the device, said as she entered the room. But we've discovered that it has the potential to disrupt the Empire's technology. If we can harness its power, we may have a chance to fight back. Carter turned to face Dr. Harris, her hope reignited. How long will it take to activate it? We're making progress, but it's going to take time, Dr. Harris replied. We need to understand how it works fully. One wrong move, and we could destroy it, or worse, make it unusable. Carter's heart raced. The clock was ticking. The Empire's fleet was already descending toward Earth's surface, and their forces were already on the move. The people of Earth had no time to waste. We can't wait any longer, Carter said. We have to take action now. General, prepare our forces. We'll defend Earth with everything we have. General Mason nodded. Yes, Madam President. We'll mobilize the troops and prepare for the worst. As the military prepared for the coming assault, President Carter's mind was focused on the artifact. She knew that the key to Earth's survival lay within that ancient relic. If they could unlock its power in time, they might stand a chance. But even if they succeeded, there was no guarantee it would work against the Empire's advanced technology. Back at the research facility, Dr. Harris and her team worked around the clock to decode the artifact's secrets. The metallic orb remained at the center of their attention, glowing faintly with energy. As the team studied it, they began to notice patterns in the markings, complex equations, symbols that seemed to correspond to electromagnetic frequencies. It was clear that the artifact was designed to interfere with electronic systems. But the question remained, how could they harness that power? The artifact seemed to respond only when touched, but no one could figure out how to make it work on a large scale. It was frustrating, but they knew they had no choice but to keep trying. Outside, the Empire's ships grew larger in the sky, their descent becoming more apparent with each hour. The world watched, holding its breath. Would Earth stand and fight, or would it crumble before the might of the Galactic Empire? In the war room, President Carter stood with her back straight, determination burning in her eyes. We will not surrender. Earth will not fall. We will fight until the very end. The final preparations were made. Earth's military forces were ready. The people of Earth were united, determined to defend their home. They had no choice but to face the Empire, and they would do so with every ounce of strength they had. The moment of truth was fast approaching. Would humanity's defiance be enough to stand against the might of the Galactic Empire? It was a question that would soon be answered in the coming battles, but one thing was certain. Earth was ready to fight back. The moment of truth had arrived. Earth's people watched with bated breath as the sky above them darkened, filled with the looming presence of the Galactic Empire's ships. The massive vessels, each one capable of annihilating entire cities with a single strike, were descending toward Earth's surface. There was no turning back now. Earth's leaders had made their stand, and now the fate of humanity would be determined by the battle that was about to unfold. In the war room, President Elena Carter paced back and forth, her eyes fixed on the large screen in front of her. It displayed live images of the Empire's fleet, growing larger with every passing minute. The intensity in the room was palpable. Earth's military forces were mobilized and ready, but the reality of the situation was clear. They were outmatched. General Mason, what's the status of our defenses? President Carter asked, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. We've positioned our forces around the most critical cities, Madam President, General Mason replied, his face grim. But we don't have the firepower to take on their fleet. Our best hope is to buy time until we can activate the artifact. The clock was ticking, and the Empire's ships were getting closer. President Carter's mind raced. The artifact, that mysterious object unearthed from Earth's past, was their last hope. If they could somehow activate its full power, it might be able to disrupt the Empire's technology, giving Earth's forces a fighting chance. But time was running out, and no one knew if they could harness its power in time. Dr. Lena Harris, the lead scientist studying the artifact, stood at a nearby console, working furiously to decode its secrets. The team of experts had made some progress, but there was still so much they didn't understand. The artifact was unlike anything they had ever seen before, its power beyond anything Earth could have imagined. But they had to try. "We've managed to isolate some of the artifact's frequencies," Dr. Harris said, her voice tense. "If we can calibrate our technology to match these frequencies, we might be able to use it as a weapon. But it's risky. We don't know what kind of effect it will have on our own systems." President Carter turned to face her. "We don't have a choice. Do it." With a sharp nod, Dr. Harris and her team went to work, adjusting the technology around them to synchronize with the artifact's energy. The room hummed with tension as the scientists made their final preparations. If they could unlock its potential, it might be the key to turning the tide in Earth's favor. Outside, the sounds of battle began. Earth's military forces, although vastly outnumbered, fought with everything they had. Fighters and bombers scrambled into the sky, launching an attack against the Empire's smaller ships. Ground forces clashed with the Empire's landing troops, struggling to hold their ground. The air was filled with explosions, and the sky was a fiery mess of gunfire and laser beams. The Empire's advanced weaponry tore through the Earth's defenses, but humanity refused to back down. President Carter watched the chaos unfold on the screen, her heart heavy with the weight of leadership. But she knew that the battle wasn't lost yet. The artifact was their last chance. They just had to hold on long enough. "We're almost there," Dr. Harris called from across the room. "We've got the artifact aligned with our systems. Now, we just need to activate it." General Mason turned to Carter, his face filled with concern. "Madam President, we don't have much time. The Empire is closing in on our main cities. If we don't do something now, we'll be overrun." Carter's mind raced as the reality of their situation hit her. The battle was not going well. The Empire's forces were far superior in terms of technology and firepower. Earth's military was holding their ground, but it was clear that they couldn't keep this up for much longer. "I'll give the order to activate the artifact," Carter said, her voice firm. "Do it now." Dr. Harris nodded, her hand shaking as she pressed the final button. The artifact on the table began to glow with an intense light. The energy in the room surged, and a strange hum filled the air. For a moment, there was silence. Then, with a sudden burst of power, the artifact sent a shockwave through the atmosphere. Across the planet, the Empire's ships began to experience massive malfunctions. Communications were disrupted, and their weapons systems went offline. The once unstoppable fleet was suddenly thrown into disarray. Ships that had been descending toward Earth's cities were thrown off course, their controls completely disabled. The shockwave from the artifact was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. Their technology, so advanced and powerful, was no match for the ancient force that had been unleashed. President Carter watched in disbelief as the tide of battle began to shift. The Empire's ships, now disabled, were falling from the sky, crashing to the ground in fiery explosions. The soldiers on the ground, caught in the chaos of the malfunctioning ships, were disoriented and confused. Earth's forces, though outnumbered, pressed the advantage. "We did it," General Mason said, his voice filled with awe. "We actually did it." But President Carter didn't allow herself to relax. The Empire might have been thrown into chaos, but they were far from defeated. There was still work to be done. The artifact had given Earth a fighting chance, but the battle was not yet won. "We're not finished yet," she said, her voice steady. "Let's finish this." As Earth's forces regrouped, the Empire scrambled to regain control of their fleet. But for the first time, the balance of power had shifted. Humanity had shown that they would not go down without a fight. And now the true battle for Earth had begun. The surprise victory that Earth had gained from the artifact's power was nothing short of extraordinary. The Empire's fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable force, was now in disarray. Many of their ships had fallen to the ground in fiery explosions, and their remaining forces were scrambling to regain control. For a moment, there was hope. Humanity had fought back and won. But President Elena Carter knew that the battle was far from over. The Empire was vast, and their reach extended across the galaxy. They were not a force to be underestimated. The artifact had disrupted their technology, yes, but the Empire still had the resources to strike back. They would not stay down for long. "General Mason," President Carter said, her voice firm, "we need to press the advantage while we can. We can't afford to give them time to regroup." General Mason nodded, already giving orders. "We'll continue pushing forward, Madam President. Our forces are gaining ground, but the Empire's main fleet is still intact. We've only taken out their smaller ships. Their larger warships are still a serious threat." Carter's eyes hardened. The initial success had been vital, but it was only one battle in a much larger war. The Empire would adapt. They always did. "We need to take down their remaining ships, but we need to be careful. We can't rely on the artifact forever. We don't know the full extent of its power, and we can't risk damaging it." The scientists working with Dr. Lena Harris had continued studying the artifact in the hopes of understanding its capabilities. They had learned that its energy could interfere with the Empire's ships, but no one was entirely sure how long its effects would last. The artifact had already caused significant damage, but the Empire would find a way to counter it if they had time. As the battle raged on, President Carter's thoughts turned to the civilians of Earth. The cities had been hit hard, and millions of people had been forced to flee their homes. She had given the order for evacuation, but not everyone could escape the chaos. The people of Earth were fighting, and the world was in a state of emergency. The survival of humanity was at stake, and President Carter had to ensure that they kept fighting for the future of the planet. In the skies above Earth, the Empire's remaining warships began to reorganize. Their commanders, once confident in their victory, now found themselves struggling to maintain control. But the Empire was ruthless, and their response would be swift. In one of the largest ships, the Emperor's representative, a high-ranking officer named Terrian Voss, stood before a panel of advisors. His face was grim, but there was no hint of fear. The Empire had faced setbacks before, and they would recover. "Activate the countermeasures," Voss ordered, his voice cold. "We will not let a primitive species stand in our way." His command was clear. The Empire had been preparing for this eventuality. They had anticipated that Earth might have some hidden strength, but they had underestimated it. The shockwave from the artifact had disrupted their fleet, but the Empire had a backup plan, a powerful energy field designed to shield their ships from outside interference. As the field activated, Earth's forces found their weapons suddenly ineffective. The Empire had protected their ships from the artifact's power, and now their warships were closing in once more. The battle, it seemed, was not won after all. Back on Earth, President Carter watched as the situation on the ground worsened. The battle had taken a turn for the worse. The Empire's ships, now protected by the energy field, were regrouping and attacking with renewed force. Earth's military was struggling to keep up, and their limited resources were being stretched thin. "General Mason, what's our status?" Carter asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "We've lost ground, Madam President," Mason replied. "Their ships are too powerful. Our defenses are holding, but barely. The Empire is reasserting control." Carter's heart sank. They had come so far, but the Empire had adapted. Once again, humanity was on the defensive. "We need to find a way to break through their shields," Carter said, thinking quickly. "Do we have any remaining weapons that could breach those energy fields?" Mason looked troubled. "Our weapons were built to fight conventional enemies, Madam President. We've never faced something like this. But we do have some experimental tech in the labs. Lasers that might be able to cut through the shields. The problem is, they're not fully tested, and we don't have enough time to perfect them. There's no time for perfection, Carter said. We'll use whatever we have. If we can disrupt their shields even for a moment, we can strike. As Mason gave the orders to prepare the experimental lasers, President Carter's mind raced. The artifact had given them an unexpected edge. But now they were once again fighting an enemy with superior technology. Humanity had always been resourceful, and now it was time to rely on that resourcefulness. They couldn't afford to fail. In the skies above, Earth's military launched their final offensive, targeting the Empire's warships with everything they had. The experimental lasers, though untested, were their best shot at breaching the enemy's shields. As the lasers fired, a tense silence followed. The beams struck the Empire's ships, causing the energy fields to flicker. For a brief moment, the shields faltered. "Now," General Mason shouted. Earth's forces, seizing the opportunity, fired everything they had at the weakened warships. Explosions rocked the sky as several of the Empire's ships were destroyed. The balance of power once again shifted, but it wasn't over yet. President Carter watched the battle unfold with a fierce determination. Earth was holding its ground, but the war was far from won. The Empire would not give up easily, and the artifact was still their last hope. "We keep fighting," she muttered to herself. "We keep fighting until the very end." The battle raged on above and across Earth's surface, a fierce clash between two civilizations, one fighting for survival and the other bent on conquest. After weeks of relentless conflict, the situation had grown increasingly desperate. The Empire's response to Earth's surprising victory had been swift and brutal, and their powerful warships, now protected by the energy shields, were once again closing in on the planet's major cities. President Elena Carter stood in the war room, eyes fixed on the large display screen, her mind working through every option, every plan. The experimental lasers had made an impact, but the Empire's defenses were far from broken. Earth's forces had done their best to hold the line, but their technology was still no match for the Empire's advanced weaponry. The enemy was relentless, and the stakes had never been higher. "General Mason," President Carter said, her voice resolute despite the gravity of their situation, "how many of the Empire's ships are still active?" "Too many, Madam President," General Mason replied, his expression grim. "Even after our latest attack, they're regrouping. We've taken down some smaller ships, but their main warships are still operational. Their shields are stronger than we anticipated. Earth's defenses are barely holding together." Carter's fists clenched at her sides. It was clear that Earth was running out of time. If they couldn't find a way to stop the Empire's warships soon, the cities would fall. The artifact had been their beacon of hope, but even its power was waning, and the Empire had adapted. They needed something else, something more. "We have one last option," Dr. Lena Harris said from across the room, her voice filled with determination. "The artifact's energy is still reacting, but it's unstable. We believe it's capable of doing much more, but we've never tested its full potential. If we can harness it one last time, we might be able to take down their entire fleet." Carter turned toward Dr. Harris. "How much time do we have?" "We're not sure," Dr. Harris admitted. "The artifact is sending out irregular energy pulses. It could last for hours, or it could stop entirely. We need to act fast." The weight of the decision hung heavy in the room. This was the last hope. If Earth couldn't turn the artifact's power to their advantage, they would be forced to surrender, and the Empire's domination would be inevitable. Carter knew what she had to do, but it would come at a great cost. "Do it," Carter said firmly, her voice unwavering. "We can't wait any longer." In the skies above Earth, the battle showed no sign of slowing. The Empire's warships continued their descent, each one unleashing devastating firepower on Earth's remaining military outposts. The streets of the major cities were filled with chaos. People ran in every direction, seeking shelter from the attacks. Humanity's once proud cities were now battlegrounds, their future uncertain. But through the smoke and debris, Earth's forces held their ground. The fighters, although outnumbered, flew with unmatched courage. They dodged enemy fire, firing their weapons with deadly precision. It was clear that humanity had never fought like this before. It was no longer about winning. It was about survival. On the ground, Earth's soldiers were doing everything they could to hold the Empire's forces at bay. Tanks and armored vehicles rolled across the city streets, engaging the enemy in fierce firefights. Despite their superior technology, the Empire's soldiers found themselves struggling against the resilience of the human spirit. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive. Back in the war room, Dr. Harris and her team of scientists worked feverishly to stabilize the artifact's energy output. The room hummed with tension as they made their final adjustments. The artifact, resting on a pedestal in the center of the room, was glowing with an eerie light. The power it contained was immense, and yet they still didn't fully understand how to control it. "Are we ready?" President Carter asked, her voice tense. "Almost," Dr. Harris replied, her hands flying over the controls. "The artifact's energy is fluctuating, but we've got it locked in. We're going to send a focused pulse to the Empire's fleet. This should disrupt their shields long enough for Earth's forces to strike." Carter took a deep breath. This was it. If it worked, they would have a chance. If it didn't, Earth would face its end. She turned to General Mason. "General, prepare our forces. When we give the signal, I want everything we have aimed at the enemy ships." "Understood, Madam President," General Mason said. "We'll be ready." The moment came faster than anyone expected. The artifact, now pulsing with immense energy, emitted a blinding flash of light. For a brief moment, all was still. The hum of the artifact filled the room, and outside, the chaos of battle seemed to fade. Then, with a powerful burst, the energy shot out from the artifact, cutting through the atmosphere with a sound like thunder. In space, the Empire's fleet was caught off guard. The focused pulse hit their shields, causing them to flicker and destabilize. The Empire's forces scrambled to react, but it was too late. Earth's military launched everything they had, taking full advantage of the momentary weakness in the Empire's defenses. Bombs, missiles, and laser fire rained down on the warships, striking them with devastating force. Several ships, already weakened by the pulse from the artifact, were torn apart in midair. The remaining ships began to fall back, their shields failing, their power systems crippled. President Carter watched the events unfold on the screen. Earth's forces had managed to breach the Empire's defenses, and now they were on the offensive. But there was no time to relax. The battle was far from over, and the Empire was not easily defeated. "Keep pushing forward," Carter ordered. "This is our chance. We take them down now, or we risk losing everything." As Earth's forces continued to strike, it became clear that the Empire's invasion was faltering. Their once invincible fleet was being dismantled, and their soldiers on the ground were losing their resolve. But the Empire, in all its might, would not yield so easily. In space, the final showdown began. Earth's forces, with the help of the artifact's power, were on the verge of victory. But the Empire had one last weapon hidden in the depths of their remaining fleet, one final move that would test humanity's resolve. The final confrontation was upon them. Earth's forces, now empowered by the mysterious artifact, had pushed the Empire to the brink of defeat. The once invincible fleet, crippled by the artifact's pulse and bombarded by Earth's military, had begun to retreat. Yet, the Empire, unwilling to admit defeat, wasn't going down without one last, devastating strike. President Elena Carter watched as the battle unfolded on the massive screen in front of her. The situation had changed dramatically since the artifact had unleashed its powerful energy. The Empire's warships, their shields failing and their systems in chaos, had been battered by relentless attacks. Yet the Empire's remaining forces were now regrouping, preparing for a final, all-out assault. "General Mason," Carter said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "What's the status on the ground?" Our forces are holding strong, Madam President, General Mason replied. But we've received word that the Empire is preparing something big. They've activated a secondary weapon, a massive warship, bigger than anything we've seen before. It's heading straight for Earth. Carter's heart sank. The Empire had been saving this weapon for the right moment, and now that moment had come. The new warship was a massive behemoth, one that Earth's forces were not equipped to fight. If they couldn't stop it, the Empire would gain an overwhelming advantage. We don't have much time, Carter said, her mind racing. Dr. Harris, is there any way we can use the artifact to stop this new weapon? Dr. Lena Harris stood near the console, her eyes glued to the data streaming across the screens. We've been trying to analyze the artifact's full potential, but its energy output is unstable. We may be able to use it one more time to disrupt the new warship, but it's a long shot. We need to be ready for anything. Carter took a deep breath. This was humanity's last chance. If they didn't stop the Empire now, Earth would fall. Activate the artifact, she said. We don't have a choice. In space, the enormous Empire warship loomed larger and larger in Earth's view, its engines roaring as it pushed forward with terrifying speed. It was a formidable weapon, equipped with advanced weapon systems and defenses beyond anything Earth had encountered. The Empire's remaining fleet had fallen back, leaving this one massive ship to finish the job. Its arrival marked the beginning of a terrifying countdown. If it wasn't stopped, it would reduce Earth's cities to rubble. The last remnants of Earth's military forces, battered and exhausted, gathered for one final stand. Fighter pilots and ground troops, knowing that they might never make it back, prepared for the fight of their lives. In their hearts, however, there was a glimmer of hope. The artifact had given them a chance, and they had seen that even the mightiest empire in the galaxy could be brought to its knees. General Mason stood in the command center, his face set in determination. All units, listen up. This is it, the last battle. We're fighting for our families, our homes, and our planet. We will not go down without a fight. Hold the line. Fight with everything you've got. The fighters launched into the sky, their engines roaring as they sped toward the Empire's warship. The ground forces moved into position, preparing for the battle that was about to unfold. The energy in the air was thick with tension. Humanity's fate rested on the success of their final stand. Back in the war room, Dr. Harris and her team had successfully activated the artifact, but its energy output was flickering and unpredictable. The room was filled with a low hum as the artifact charged, its glow intensifying. The artifact had already proven its power, but no one knew what would happen when it was used again. We're ready, Dr. Harris said, her voice tight with anxiety. The artifact's energy is aligned. If we fire now, it should reach the Empire's warship and disrupt its shields, long enough for our forces to strike. Carter nodded. Do it. With a press of a button, the artifact released its energy once again. The pulse shot into the sky, a brilliant beam of light that streaked through the atmosphere. It was the last hope. If it worked, the Empire's warship would be vulnerable to attack. In space, the pulse from the artifact struck the massive Empire warship, its shields faltering under the intense force of the energy. For a moment, the ship seemed to tremble, as if in disbelief that anything could challenge it. The warship's power systems began to flicker, and its weapon systems went dark. Now was Earth's moment. Target their weak points, General Mason shouted, as the fighters and bombers locked onto the vulnerable areas of the warship. The massive ship, once impervious to attack, was now in the sights of Earth's military. The fighters, knowing this might be their only shot, unleashed everything they had. Missiles and lasers hit the warship, striking its exposed hull with devastating force. The warship groaned, its shields barely holding. The massive ship's weapons fired back in desperation, but Earth's forces kept up their relentless assault. Keep going, Carter urged, watching the battle unfold on the screens. The pulse from the artifact had given them an opening, But now it was up to Earth's fighters and ground forces to finish the job. The sky above Earth was alive with fire as the final battle unfolded. Ships from both sides clashed in a desperate struggle for dominance. Earth's forces pressed on, knowing that this was their last chance to save their planet. At the center of the battle, the Empire's warship began to crack under the pressure. Earth's relentless attacks had taken their toll. The massive ship's hull began to buckle, and its weapon systems went offline one by one. A final, thunderous explosion rocked the ship as Earth's forces hit its core. The warship, once a symbol of the Empire's might, was no more. Debris rained down from the sky as the remnants of the ship fell to Earth's surface. In the war room, the room erupted in cheers. The warship had been destroyed. Earth had won. "We did it," General Mason said, a rare smile breaking across his face. President Carter stood, watching the final pieces of the Empire's fleet retreat into the depths of space. It was over. The Empire had been defeated, and humanity had survived. Against all odds, Earth had prevailed. "We did it together," Carter said, her voice full of pride. Humanity's strength has always been in its unity, in its will to fight. We may be small in the grand scheme of the galaxy, but we've proven that we will never back down. This is our planet, and we will protect it forever.